Hold on. Sounds like this. Oh, okay. On. Making sure that.
I always look nice.
Where was that a picture of?
Yeah. They just Google just puts random.
That was cool. I like that.
Okay, we'll show that. Okay, welcome. Okay, for those that are on Zoom, they're in the chat. You'll find the PDF for lesson 1. I only have the PDF for lesson 1, so feel free to come pick up your book at your convenience before next Wednesday. So welcome. Oh, doors bells ringing. I got it. Yeah. Welcome to the opening lesson of For All Humankind. This is a 4-week one. And we're, today's world in Judaism, outside of Judaism, in the world in general, we talk a lot about inclusion or exclusion or, so we're going to be discussing kind of how Judaism fits into the broader global picture and some of the ideas that in Judaism that fit into the broader human picture, and not just, into the larger world. So before we get officially started with this, I would like to poll you guys on a scale of, that's just a dedication to the chairman of, he was like a big leader in the Chabad movement, and he, was helping all of the emissaries and passed away last 2 years ago. But okay, so here's the poll. On a scale of, on page 3, on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 represents completely universal, i.e. open to all, with a message intended for everyone, and 5 would be completely exclusive, like private, insular, and primarily for a select group. Where would you put Judaism? So 1 on one side of the spectrum is like, it's for everyone, it's for, it appeals to everyone, it has a message for everyone, and 5 would be, it's a super niche club that, if you don't like gefilte fish, you better not bother. So where would you rank it? And compare it, and maybe it helps to compare it to other religions, contrast it to another major religion. Where would they fall compared to us? And
close to a 5.
You think of 5, yeah. That's because there's no one at the Minion, so you're like, it's got to be, it's got to be a 5.
I expected it might be closer to 3 or 4. The reluctance to have any kind of conversions or efforts of conversions takes it away from being a 1.
Right.
And the rejection of a very common notion of culture, Christian-dominated world, at least in America, probably takes it away from being number 2. But I think that the value systems sort of fall someplace in the 4 or 5 range in terms of being attractive.
I was referring to the value system that, if you believe in the 7 Melchite laws, you're skeptic of Judaism. There's not really a lot of complications to it.
So you're saying, well, 5 is the most like insulated and
insulated.
Yeah. You thought it was. You were saying it was 1. You went like we're really open and yeah.
Yeah, I would say 1.
You would say 1. Okay. You don't have to vote.
3.
Okay. If you get it wrong, you're not invited back. Phil knows. He's been there. He's been to every JLI probably that's ever been offered, and they still invite him back. He still comes back for more abuse.
Well, that's the question
Yes.
About the question.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I read the question is, if it's open to all with the message intended for everyone. Now, open, I mean,
yeah.
I think it has a message for everyone.
But not necessarily is it open.
Right.
Right. Okay, that's a good point. So if they stumble on the message, then it has a message, but they're not. We don't write the message on like the bottom of a Snapple cap or anything like that. But
you can't be the chosen people unless most people aren't chosen.
Right. Got to be pretty exclusive. So you guys literally, you guys summed it up beautifully. I really, that poll was really helpful. because now I don't have to teach anything. So the common perception of people who are Jewish and people who are not Jewish is that we're very exclusive and we have a very niche, we're a little, tribe, a little religion. We had a big impact on the world, but we do our own thing and we're very exclusive. And that notion, that idea, if you ever try to explain kosher or Passover to a friendly non-Jewish neighbor or colleague, you're not exactly presenting it as like some universal thing that everyone can understand. It's more like, this is my weird thing that I do, and that's it, and I eat off. But that's so there is a certain perception of exclusivity and apartness, and that just to buttress that angle of it and build up that perspective of it. We're going to bring some texts that really bear that out and really kind of mandate that perspective and make it kind of So a text, yeah.
You can't be completely exclusive, otherwise there wouldn't be any converts to Judaism.
Yeah, so let's look at the text and okay, who said we want converts?
We're not advertising for converts; they come to us.
Do they?
I think they convert just
Yeah.
because they have to. They marry into the religion, but they don't just come from
Yeah.
outside. Usually,
Right.
they want to be Jewish.
Right. Yes. So we're about to have exactly that conversation maybe. So let's read some of these texts. So these texts are going to kind of shore up the idea that it's very exclusive and not so welcoming to the outside. So in text 1a, well, this happens before. It's kind of an introduction to receiving the Torah, which we're about to celebrate on Shavuos in a few weeks. So before receiving the Torah, God is kind of framing it the moment and saying, spelling out the relationship that the Jewish people are kind of entering into here. Text 1a, a kingdom of priests. It's on you, Greg. You're sitting to the right, page 3.
Moses went up to God, and God called to him from the mountain, saying, "This is what you shall say to the house of Jacob and tell the children of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. And now, if you will listen to my voice and keep my covenant, you will be my treasured nation from among all the peoples, for the entire earth is mine. And you will be for me a kingdom, priests, and a holy nation. These are the words you shall speak to the children of Israel."
Yeah, so God is reminding the Jewish people what they witnessed at Egypt, the miracles, and the way that He lifted them, so to speak, on the wings of an eagle, which is a metaphor for the affection and the care and the love that God showed to these people, and then comes to the heart of the message that they will become His segula, His treasured nation, destined to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Right? That's a limiting term. That's a term of, you guys are going to be this unique, treasured people from amongst the other nations. So that denotes exclusivity with that singling out, right? And then continuing on, a few days later, you have the message where God then gives the Torah, descends on Sinai, so to speak. And what are the opening words, the iconic opening words for Jeff?
I am your God who took you out of Egypt from the house of slavery. Right.
God, He didn't say, "I am the God of the universe who created all the atoms and the cosmos." He said, "I took you out of Egypt. I'm your God." Like, it's very personal, very direct to a very specific set of people, and all the mitzvahs that follow and the whole Torah is all given to this specific set of people. So this seems to be, a very limited. Is there a beeping sound? I don't know what. Okay. So it's
God speaking to you.
Yeah. Now I'm going to go build an ark. No. So that seems to be a very limited and also very exclusive relationship. And then if there's any more doubt about the Torah's ownership, who is the Torah for? Who is the Torah being given to? Text 1c for Bob.
The Torah that Moses commanded us is the heritage of the community of Jacob.
Right, Torah tiva lanu Moshe Maresha Kehilas Yaakov. Very famous phrase that we say. What is the Torah? It is the heritage of the Jewish people, the community of Jacob. We are the descendants of Jacob. So, Yeah.
So in that first one, 1A, Moses is going to say this to the people, but in that group of people, the Israelites who left Egypt were Egyptians.
Ostensibly, they converted to Judaism, or they were joining those people, right?
In the process of converting through 40 years.
I guess I don't those mixed multitudes you're talking about. Or?
Well, all of the people that came with and who escaped for fear or for whatever reason. Who knows?
Right.
But so we weren't exclusive at that time.
That's true. There was a certain sense of openness. Like Jethro was Moses' father-in-law. He could have come. He didn't choose to in the end, debatably, but he came to check out the what was going on. He heard about all the hullabaloo, and he was definitely invited to join. So
word travels fast, even without something.
Yes. Yeah. Right. That's true. That's a good point you raised.
We were open to those people. Otherwise, we would have kept them out and said, "No,
you don't have the right DNA.
You're not coming with us."
Yeah.
But they allowed people to come with us, for good or bad. They allowed people to come with us. So we were open at that time.
Yeah. I guess pre-Sinai and then post-Sinai, you can say there's a difference.
Right.
So we have this idea of exclusivity in those who experience the Exodus is refers to. We talk about the inheritance of Jacob, right? And this exclusivity is explored by Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs, a modern Jewish thinker, passed away in 2020. Very he articulates deep ideas very, very beautifully. So in text 2, he talks about this idea of the exclusivity of the Jewish people for Alan.
Jewish law imposes a code of difference. Jews are not to be like all the nations. Internally, this was a source of pride, expressed in Balaam's blessing. It is a people that dwells apart, not reckoned among the nations. Externally, it was a source of resentment, caught in Haman's complaint to Ahasuerus. There is certain people scattered and dispersed whose laws are different from those of any other people.
Right. So on one hand, we have this. Well, to just explain who he's referring to, Bilam was a prophet of a non-Jewish prophet who was hired to use his abilities to curse the Jewish people. Instead, he ended up blessing the Jewish people because he was a true prophet and he wasn't able to do something that was against what God's will was. So one of his blessings, one of his things that he was praising was that we were people that dwells apart and not reckoned amongst the nations. So it's a source of pride. Right, it's a source of like we're able to hold ourselves in our own space, in our own manner. We're not reckoned with whatever the popular notions are at any given time. We have our own way of doing things, and that's a source of pride and connection. On the other hand, that was used as a reason for resentment and suspicion, as you see that Haman. That's the exact wording that he used when he was trying to convince the king of Persia to let him kill us. So that's always been the case. So we have our own way of doing things, but it also breeds some animosity. But it's not because we don't merely have this distinction because we were in exile and we're forced to live apart and we can't, we're not capable of integrating. It's also because we have our laws and our way of life were historically markedly different than everyone else. So that's kind of what the Jewish way of doing things was. And now, and you guys raised this point. All right, what about converts? So the Torah is all exclusive, and God is all exclusive to. But we have conversion. So you don't have to be Jewish; you can become Jewish. Right. So what do we say about conversion? Text 3a. We're just building up this side. We're going to counter it, so don't worry. This is steel manning the exclusive end of things, but this whole course is about the opposite. But text 3a for Dr. Phil.
What is the meaning of that which he who serves as a guarantor or a stranger shall suffer evil.
Quoting Proverbs and the Talmud saying, like, what does that mean?
Yeah, this means evil after evil will befall those who accept converts.
Okay, so the plain, obvious meaning of that is cannot possibly be accurate or true, because we not only accept converts, they make up a major part of our the contributions to the Torah in the chain of tradition that you could trace. The Rambam actually lists off person after person in the Masorah, like the giving over of the divine knowledge, and a big part of them are converts. So
was it Onkelos?
Onkelos was a convert. Yeah, it's just like Rabbi Akiva's father was a convert. I mean, there's an endless list of it. So obviously it's not true that this is such a horrible thing. So Tosafot, one of the commentators, qualifies what this means on text 3b for Karen.
Evil after evil will befall those who accept converts. Rabbi Yitzchak said, this refers to instances where non-Jews are encouraged to convert, or if they accept it too readily and immediately. However, if they demonstrate a genuine and earnest effort to embrace the faith, we are obliged to accept them.
Right. So, yes, the point is we do have a way to become a member. It's definitely possible to become Jewish, but it depends on sincerity, depends on persistence. It's not something that's like, it's a far cry from, standing on a street corner and just getting a guy to, basically agree to sign up and they're Jewish now. Like, it's a very different paradigm. Yes, there is conversion, but it's very hard to convert if you're not, it's basically like a door that you have to knock on and bang on, and it's kind of locked. And if you bang hard enough, the door is open. So, it's not close to conversion, but it definitely is designed to limit conversion of convenience or conversion of that sort. Which reminds me of a joke. There was a pastor, a rabbi, and a priest who said, let's see which of us can successfully convert a bear. So the priest came back and he said, look, it was a tussle. The bear was pretty resisted, but I sprinkled some holy water and he came, calmed down. The pastor says, okay, he also had his chance with the bear. The bear said, bear was pretty aggravated, but I put him in the water in the lake, and he was all good. We got done. They come to the rabbi. He's in a full body cast in the hospital. I shouldn't have started with the bris. So yeah, but actually that joke is pretty true. It's like, yeah, it's very hard to convert someone to Judaism. But so you can interpret this as unwelcoming or standoffish policy, and it reinforces the perception that Judaism is a very members-only club. So after we validated this perception, let's pose two important questions to kind of run counter to that. So what if this idea of separateness and exclusivity isn't the whole story? What if it's just a part of a much larger universal vision, right? So we have the exclusivity, but it's part of a larger picture. And what if from its very beginning, Judaism's core mission was to deliver a revolutionary message to all of humanity? So meaning that there is a undercurrent and a foundation to Judaism that is designed to be delivered to the entire humanity. And despite the exclusivity of the bulk of Judaism, but its foundation and its essence is actually meant for all of humanity. That's kind of the premise, and that's the thesis of this course, and we're going to be exploring how that is. So let's take a trip back to Genesis and to the story of the first Jew. I don't know if he's the first official Jew, because you have to be at Sinai to be an official Jew, but the first guy who was kind of like our father, Abraham. Right? So let's talk about him. And to appreciate, kind of to contrast what his idea, his personality, or what he stood for, we have Noah, who lived during a period of history which kind of was saturated with corruption. So God's like, I'm swiping left on this one. I'm going to flush this one down. So everyone was doomed to flood. And Noah was spared because it says that he was a righteous person in his generation. He was a person who was not corrupt, he was not horrible, and he was not immoral. Righteous and perfect. Text 4 in Genesis 6:8-9, right? Noah found favor in the eyes of God. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with God. Wonderful person, and he deserved to be saved from the flood, right? So God told him to build the ark. He spent decades building the ark. He wasn't near any water, so people thought he was crazy. And every time someone asked him, he said, it's going to rain really hard, and we need an ark. Did it really change anybody? No. It just kind of saved him and his family. But, you know, it's a very big statement that he was the only one that was able to be, you know, that righteous. So, but here's the question. Noah is not really the hero of, you know, the Jewish people. He's a strong character in the biblical narrative. But why is he different than Abraham? Where's the contrast? He's not the father of the Jewish people. He's, you know, we don't have him in our, you know, in our whatever. Yeah. He's not in our, like, you know, trading card set. So they actually make those. So here's the difference. Look at this conversation that Abraham has with God. God comes to Abraham and to tell him that there's this people in a place called Sodom, and they're really, really cruel and nasty, and they really need to be dealt with. And God says, I think I'm going to figure out how to deal with them. And Abraham goes into emergency mode and starts begging imploring God to reconsider and have mercy on these people. It's a long conversation, but I think it's interesting to read it because to see the chutzpah and to see the kind of assertion that Abraham is taking and putting himself, you know, let's read it. Text 5. This is from again from Genesis. I think I'm going to read it. God said to Abraham, "The outcry from Sodom and Gomorrah has grown immense, and their sin is very grave. I will ascend now and see whether their actions truly match the outcry that has reached me." That's a metaphorical. So if they do, I will bring destruction. If not, I will know what to do. Abram approached God and said, "Will you also destroy the righteous together with the wicked? Perhaps there are 50 righteous people in the city. Will you still destroy it and not spare the place for the sake of 50 righteous who live there?" So he says, you can't just kill people there's innocent people there. You can't just destroy the whole city. He tells God. Sounds like a modern war. Okay, but it would be beneath you, he tells God, to act in such a way, to kill the righteous along with the wicked, treating both alike. Far be it from you. You shall be the judge of all the earth and not act justly. Like, you're the judge of the whole earth. You have to be a good judge. So God replied, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the entire region for their sake." Abram answered, "Behold, I have dared to speak to my Lord, though I am not but dust and ashes. Perhaps there are 5 fewer than 50. Will you destroy the whole city for a lack of 5? God said, "I will not destroy it if I find 45. This is where haggling was born. So Abraham continued, "Perhaps 40 it will be found there." God answered, "I will not act for the sake of 40. Abram said, "Please let God's anger not flare up as I speak. Perhaps 30 will be found there." You see, he's afraid to even speak. He's like putting himself in danger in his own mind, you know, and it's just, it's really heroic. Abram said, "Behold, I have dared to speak to my Lord again. Perhaps 20 will be found there. I will not destroy for the sake of 20. Finally, Abram said, "Please let my Lord not be angered, and I will speak just once more. Perhaps 10 will be found there." God responded, "I will not destroy for the sake of 10. So God killed 9 innocent people. But the point is that Abraham was challenging God's justice and compassion. And I mean, it wasn't obviously what the point of this was, that God was obviously sharing his plans with Abraham in order for Abraham to show Abraham's compassion and to show Abraham's care for humanity. These are people who weren't even technically, you know, these are very corrupt people, very deserving, you know, but to even challenge and to question God himself, that shows incredible,
Yeah, so, I mean,
commitment. Yeah, chutzpah, and it's a commitment to humanity. And yeah,
I mean, knowing that God knows all, I mean, God knew
yeah,
there weren't even 10 people there. And
yeah.
maybe he was testing Abraham to see how
Yes.
far will you go.
Yeah, the whole conversation is for Abraham's sake, really. I mean, yeah, for sure. God didn't have to tell him to share with him the plans or to. The whole thing is just to show Avram's compassion, to bring out his compassion, for it to be expressed, and maybe there was a chance that he would save. I don't know. It's possible that. That's a good point. But Moses did it, and it worked. So, right, the Jewish people were at risk of being destroyed, and Moses talked God down, so to speak. But yes, this is philosophically very challenging to discuss. So maybe we'll save it for a different time. But the point here is really Abraham's character. It even uses the word vayigash in Hebrew. Vayigash it means approached, but it means approached aggressively. It's used wherever in the Torah where someone's going for war. This nation approached the other nation in a military, so it's very confrontational. So it shows you that the depth of Avram's character and his defining characteristic. So yes, he was pious. Yes, he was obedient, just like Noah, but he went far beyond that. He actually was deeply, deeply, deeply concerned about what happens to even the not so great people in his generation. So that's the difference, really. And that doesn't mean Noah wasn't righteous. It just he doesn't have that extra quality that Avram had. Now, this actually goes a step further. God says why he even confided in Avram and why he cherished Avram, what that relationship. What was special about the way that Avram conducted his relationship with God? On text 6 on page 13, it says, I love Avraham because of his commitment to guide his children and followers to follow God's path and uphold righteousness and justice. So what's so great about Avraham? Why do I love him? He isn't just a good person. He isn't a caring person. He leaves a legacy. He actively embodies and promotes and furthers the values of tzedakah, righteousness, and mishpat, justice. That's what the verse is saying. So why was Avram the first Jew? Why is he the ultimate Jew? Because of this quality of his, that he was able to pass forward and promote and radiate these values. So this tells us that there are these core underlying universal ideas such as righteousness and justice that underpin what it means to be a Jew. And not just that it's meant to be facing outward, that it's meant to be influencing beyond.
Do you remember what context he said?
There's a right, you can do it now. In fact, if you want. But so that's the so this is the powerful universal starting point of Judaism. So now tzedakah and mishpat are not just a abstract philosophy. That's not where it ends, right? As Jeff was mentioning, right, when we were doing the polling part of this, right? It actually amounts to 7 laws. These are the famous 7 Noahide laws, and these laws were not all given to Noah. They were actually mostly 6 of them were given to Adam in the Torah, but the 7th was given to Noah, so it's named after him. Because all of us are descendants of Noah. All of humanity are descendants of Noah officially. So everyone has and shares equally those commandments. They were all given to them. So the Maimonides, who was the medieval halachic codifier, he delineates the 7 laws. Let's see how he presents them. This graphic is really, really hard to, you would never know what they mean. I was having a debate with my wife. Are slides meant to graphically illustrate and help you understand a concept, or just to be a distraction on the screen that has no bearing on the subject. But so.
China, they would tell you the same.
Yeah, yeah, probably. So let's read it in Maimonides, which is really the go-to source for whatever, he codified all of Judaism into one book, like essentially. He didn't leave out anything, legally speaking, not the stories and everything, but he legal all the laws of Judaism. It's the only book of the sort that has that. So God commanded Adam concerning 6 matters. He forbade 1, idolatry; 2, cursing God; 3, murder; 4, illicit sexual relations; and theft. And he instructed him to 6, establish a judiciary. So every society needs this idea of a judiciary. And Noah got the last one, consuming a limb torn from a living animal. I guess Noah had a particular penchant for that delicacy, so he got that mitzvah. So,
Oh, you think he had such a
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
That's a good point. He probably was like, I'm just going to eat this, yeah.
You got to keep the animals alive.
And there wasn't enough room to cook them.
Yeah.
So you just, it's a good point. So, okay, great. God gave Adam these laws, okay, but we know that the Torah has many more of those. So who cares about these 7, right? These 7 are okay, they're nice for people who don't have 613 other ones. So why would we concern ourselves with these earlier laws? What is the relevance to us? So the answer is, as the physical and spiritual descendants, the people who carry forth the mission and the of Abraham, we're tasked with teaching these laws and encouraging their observance throughout the world. That's a part of Judaism that is very understated and was definitely suppressed throughout many years of our history because we were oppressed. But it is a part of what it means to be a Jew, which is to spread the universal laws of humanity. So, as Maimonides says in text 7b, Moses relayed the divine command to ensure that all the inhabitants of the world accept the Noahide laws. So that's the idea. We're supposed to kind of, in contrast to our lack of, our aversion to proselytizing, there is something that we should be doing about the Noahide laws being observed. And obviously, like, we got the laws in Sinai to be the, because we hold that message and we're able to continue it and preserve it and then teach it. And not just that, we can embody it too, which is another conversation. But on text, so now 7 laws sounds like a very easy, 7 little things that everyone has to do. That sounds like a cheap, it doesn't sound very developed and very complex. So on the contrary, actually, it's really not just 7. It's actually, there's a whole world in these laws. Actually, this course, we're going to go through them in depth. In this lesson, we'll be talking about the first 2. But the Sefer HaChinuch in text 8, Sefer HaChinuch goes through the different mitzvahs and explains them in a practical sense. So he said, page 16, do not be misled by the number 7 when it comes to the Noahide laws. Even though the number is a well-known and cited in the Talmud, these 7 laws are not 7 isolated commands, but 7 broad categories encompassing many specific laws. For instance, the prohibition of illicit sexual relations is counted as one Noahide law, yet it includes many distinct prohibitions, as you can imagine. Like, what is illicit sexual relations? Like, what is covered by that? Likewise, the prohibition of idolatry is a single law that contains numerous details, and the prohibition of theft covers all conduct that leads to theft. I would go so far as to say the idea, the first one, which is to believe in a God. I mean, what is a God? What God? Can I believe in anything? Can I believe in a flying spaghetti monster? Obviously, there's like the definition. Obviously, there's details. Obviously, there's complexity. So it's not just there's 7, but they're very broad categories and topics that have to be explored and expounded on. Okay, but
yet to this day, humanity has a really hard time following it.
I would say, like, between the major religions, they're pretty good at it. There's like billions of Muslims. I don't think the Muslims, like, it's part of their religious Muslims, I don't think violate any of them, unless they're doing the violent part of Islam. But
I go to jail and talk to prison inmates, and many of them know the Noahide laws. Many of them look down when you talk about them.
Yeah. So there are actually Noahides, like meaning they have no religion, but they follow the Noahide laws. And what's the framework for that? Where do they learn about it? Mostly from Judaism, like they study Jewish texts and things like that, but they don't actually do mitzvahs. They kind of have to invent their own lifestyle and their own path, but within the framework of how we define God, how we define these mitzvahs. It's kind of a weird stew, which is it was probably very practical when we had when the Jewish people ruled Israel a few 1,000 years ago, whenever it was, 1,500 years ago. There were many Noahides living in Israel. Like it wasn't if you were non-Jewish, you weren't allowed to live in Israel and worship idols, even though the Jews were worshiping idols 90% of the time. But officially, the setup was, if you wanted to live here, you got to follow the 7 Noahide laws. That was the rule. So that was kind of I think that was the original game plan, was like kind of, so now it goes so much as to say, now what is this, So the interesting part of this, it's not just a throwaway here. This is for the outsiders. We'll keep eating our caviar. You guys can have the leftovers. That's not what this is at all. If you look at Maimonides, text 9, anyone who accepts these 7 laws and observes them is counted among the righteous of the nations and has a share in the world to come.
That being Jewish?
What is that? What's the question?
A minute ago, we were talking about being the chosen people and the special tribe.
Yeah.
So this suggests to me that you can be righteous without being Jewish.
So look at this graphic here. This will answer your question. There's 2 cars. No, this doesn't answer your question. It's just cute. They're both going to the same place on different paths. World to come, right? They're both going to the world to come. Isn't that incredible? So
I would assume the world to come is not a defined exact thing also.
He means the afterlife when we die. You're right. It's not defined. There's a lot of people who use the world to come to refer to the Messianic era and when the bodies will come back and everything. But he's talking about the Rambam, because his opinion of the world to come was this is the afterlife, which is when you die, you either go to the roaster. I'm joking. That I'm a little irreverent about certain concepts. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe I should find another profession. But he says that you go to the world to come. So Alan is saying, okay, so they're Jews in all.
No, I'm asking whether they're the same as.
Yeah. So I think I'll answer that as in 2 ways. Well, there's 2 questions maybe folded into that question. What's the point of the Jews then? Maybe. And for the individual Jew, what is the point of what is the difference? Like, that's the 2 separate questions. I don't know. But there's a practical and a fundamental. Practically speaking, a Jew, his entire life revolves around God. Essentially, if you learn Torah, keep mitzvahs, there's nothing there. It's your whole life. It's not. It's a very immersive thing, and your relationship with God is everything. And you live in a nation, in a community, who have that also. So we embody, we live, breathe, and exist these values, and we are the, and that's what allows us to be the force that distributes them and that radiates them, and we're able to, we're like the time capsule of these values, right? We're able to contain them, to pass them forward, to develop them, because this is our life, this is our whole existence. Sit in yeshiva for 13 hours learning about God. I mean, that's what Judaism is. So that's the practical. It's like a supercharged, concentrated container for these values, and for God Himself. The fundamental difference is, and this is getting into the first course of the year that we had, the more mystical things, which is a Jew is not. This is great. You could be righteous, you could be a good person, but the Torah and mitzvahs actually give us something beyond that, which is very hard to get otherwise. You could get it, but it's very hard, which is an actual relationship and connection with God, like an actual communion. He's talking to you and you're talking to him. And you're in touch with not just the world, you're a bridge between the infinite, between God, who is infinite, and beyond the world, and the world itself. We bring godliness into the world. That's the Jewish superpower. It's very hard to do that as a human being, and as with just the 7 Noahide laws. You could do it. You could. There are. It's just Torah and mitzvahs is how we do that. So it's a totally different existence. I hope that answers somewhat. But as far as reward is concerned, you're definitely, as a righteous Gentile, Noahide, you're definitely deserving of the same reward. So do we see ourselves as the only definitive path to God and truth and goodness? No. I mean, we have a universal message for everybody. That's absolutely true, the case. And that's probably why we don't proselytize, because our mission is not to make other people Jewish. That's like having a doctor who's, instead of treating patients and healing people, their mission is to make everyone doctors. That's not what a doctor does. A doctor uses his doctor profession. He spent years learning how to heal people, and his job is to heal people, not to make more doctors. Once in a while, a guy is crazy enough to go to medical school and become a doctor, but that's not everyone. So,
but doesn't this all this sentence, which I've heard it before, it doesn't say has an equal share in the world to come. It just has a share. There may be unequalness to.
Let's see what the Meiri says. By the way, yes, there's for sure within the Jewish nation there's unequalness of the ability for us to contain and relate to and appreciate godliness, holiness, spirituality. That's just a fact. But everyone everyone is capable and has potential to go wherever. The Rambam famously says, a Kohen is a very holy person. A Levi is very holy, but an Israelite can be holier than both of them if he so chooses. There are like kind of gradations of different responsibility and roles, but we don't believe we believe in upward mobility and in people being able to choose and to grow. No one's inherently limited to any specific thing. So now it's at this point important to pause and to clarify that the point of this discussion is not so much we're not trying to accomplish that everyone here feels that the point is that we should go out and start spreading the mitzvahs. I mean, that's a nice thing to do, but that's not the main purpose here. The first idea here is that we're supposed to understand the vision of Judaism, this universal vision ourselves, and internalize it and relate to it. The more we relate and embody it, the more we will naturally represent it. We'll naturally be able to build the families and societies and institutions and communities that promote these values. And so it's not just about the proselytizing aspect. It's much more than that. So we have to fully understand and appreciate what these mitzvahs represent within our own framework. So this is an interesting thing to your point, Phil, what the Meiri says. Meiri was also another medieval Talmudist commentator. He says, anyone who engages, on text 10, page 17, anyone who engages in the study of the 7 Noahide laws, their principles, their details, and their applications, in which most of the Torah's core teachings are contained, is worthy of great honor, even as much as the high priest himself. What's the point here? The point is, the 7 Noahide laws are not just an external light version of Judaism. Here's Judaism light, if you can't handle the real thing. Within those laws, within these principles and values are contained the core and the essence of Judaism. And the Meiri goes so far as to say that anyone who learns them is worthy of the same praise as the holiest person who goes into the holiest of holies, the Kohen Gadol. So that's a radical statement that a non-Jew who learns and studies and is a Noahide can be a Kohen Gadol. Not actually. I can't be a Kohen Gadol actually because I'm a Levi, right? But yeah.
Seems to me that if you didn't allow the inclusion of a person who is not Jewish but follows the rules,
Mm-hmm.
they would have no incentive to follow the rules. What's the pitch? The pitch is if you're Jewish and you do all the things you're supposed to do that are Jewish, you get the reward of what Jews get in the afterlife. Now you're going to turn to a guy and say, I don't care how hard you work at doing the same good things, you'll never get the same gold ring at the end of the.
You're saying we have to say this.
Yeah, you can't. The thing doesn't work if you don't allow people to have the equality of result. Why would I break my back doing these complicated things like giving up my idols, and then find out that even though I did it, you stand over there.
Well,
you're a second-class citizen.
Well, there's two ways about that. First of all, some religions know how to coerce people into doing things. So if we wanted to, we could say, if you worship idols, we will kill you, which is what we would do if we had our own autonomous.
I mean, it's got to be a free will kind of adoption.
That would be nice, but that's not how things always work.
But again, if somebody of his own free will gives up his idols, shouldn't he get treated very well? Shouldn't he get a reward? Why is his reward less than ours?
Yeah, I mean, that's very compelling, and I'm glad that that's exactly what we do. They do, like God does. It seems like the Torah does recognize that. So, I mean, but it's not. You're saying it should be of a given and should be for granted, but I don't think so. I think in other religions, if you don't follow the religion to the T, you're not going where they're going, and you're actually going somewhere else. And so it's not necessarily a given. You can be a good person, but if you don't accept Jesus, what are you? You're worthless, and they'll behead you if you don't. I mean, there's not comparative religion. I'm just saying it's not a given. It's not a given to say we got to sweeten the deal, otherwise, and we got to make them equal, otherwise they're not going to do it. I mean, it definitely doesn't. It doesn't do good for our numbers, for our, Yeah.
Is there some teaching or writings that talk about if someone dedicates themselves and does what they need to do to convert, that there's actually a certain level of higher respect in some way?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we even say that they're basically they were destined to be Jewish from the beginning, and it's just that they were trusted. They were entrusted to put in that work and to not even be growing up with it, and to still be able to find the truth is much more impressive than someone who was fed it, right? But even those of us who are fed it, we have to rediscover it. We have to build it up. It's not so easy. But yes, there is something very impressive about someone who comes to it. Yeah. Especially, yeah. Okay, enough jokes. Okay. So let's learn to appreciate some of these values of ourselves. What is this slide talking about? When I was supposed to go to that slide. All right. Right, this is, okay. So the first value, the first mitzvah is belief in God. And the first two are like the foundational ones. We'll talk about those first two right now. The first two are the foundational ones. They're the ones that's why they're in the front. So belief in God. So I'll speed through some of this, but so Abraham is known in our tradition as the father of this idea of this monotheistic concept. The Rambam in text 11a, we won't read it, read it on your own, describes Abraham's wandering as a child, how he used to think, look, he used to look at the world and he used to wonder about its origins. He used to wonder about what is the unifying thing behind all of it. What can possibly have done all of this? His parents, his father, his family was in the idol worship business, the idol business. They used to sell ketchkes. So they managed an idol store. And there's a Medrash, text 11b, that talks about how Terach, his father, was an idol maker, salesman. And when people came, Avraham would manage the shop, and I'm sure if you have family businesses, your dad leaves you, and maybe Jeff is the only one who has that. But your dad, puts you in charge for the day, and you screw everything up. So that's what Avraham did. So the Jeff did, little Jeff. Why did you give that guy Klana? So he basically, guys used to come in, and Avraham would ask, "How old are you?" And the guy would say, "I'm 50 or 60." And then he said, "You poor fellow. Imagine that a man of 60 is bowing down to something that was made yesterday." So he lost a lot of business. So he was very irreverent. He was an iconoclast, right? One day he actually destroyed all the idols. That's where the iconoclast comes from, like smashing of idols, right? He destroyed all the idols, and then when his father came home, he said, "That idol did it." He put the hammer in the idol, and he said, "That idol did it." And his father's like, "What do you think? I'm stupid? He doesn't move." And he's like, "Yeah, but you worship the guy. So what do you want from me?" So that was the idea, that he was basically mocking the concept, right? And Maimonides talks about how he was a one-man campaign against the concept of idol worship, of worshiping all sorts of different powers in the world. He used to debate with people. He was a very activist in that way. So that's actually why he's called an Ivri. The term Ivri means side. You had Avraham on one side and the whole world on the other. That was the relationship that Avraham had with the world. It's like that joke. Someone was driving down the highway, and his wife calls him in the car on the I-95. He's like, "Honey, I'm seeing on the news, there's a guy on the highway driving the opposite direction of all the cars." And he's like, "Yeah, well, the highway I'm on, there's 100 cars driving the wrong way." That's what a Jew is. He's driving the wrong way on the street. That's what Avram chose as his path in life. But he actually had many followers, and he had tremendous success with his message. But there's a couple of questions on the topic of monotheism. Okay, first of all, is it still relevant? Right? How many people do you know that have this issue where they believe in too many gods? So this message of monotheism was very revolutionary at some point, many years ago, and now it's kind of an irrelevant sticking point. We have one God, and they had 20, right? So okay, very few people now have many gods. So is it still relevant? Yeah, the Indians, but I don't even know what their theology is. Maybe there's no gods, or there's one supreme. Yeah, but
if you go to China, you see all the different pagan gods. They actually worship them.
Yeah, and there's a person that they worship too in some religion. I mean, there's plenty of it, just like there's slavery in the world still. But there's remnants of it. But is this fight kind of irrelevant? To us, we're not in China. Okay, that's the first question. And secondly, what's even the emphasis on this one God thing, right? Who cares how many there are? Like, why is that so fundamental? Why is that so important as a basis, as a foundation, that there's one instead of six? There could be a nice, like the Avengers, the 6 of them. It's better, So what's that idea? It seems like a very stupid and childish thing that people did, worshiping stones, worshiping trees, right? Is there anything worth negating anymore at this point, right? So the Rambam talks about how people came to actually worship idols to begin with. Where did this come from? How did people start this process? Talks about this evolution, this theological evolution from Adam, where everyone obviously knew that there was a creator because they were created by God, and they knew of him, and maybe it was obvious at some point. But they also noticed that there were other powers in the universe. There were other things that were responsible for their well-being. And they said, okay, there's God, and then there's these other forces in the world. These other forces in the world are also important, and we also have to give deference to them. We have to please and satisfy them. So it could be the stars or the sun. It could be many forces, nature. If you want, that was kind of the idea. Yes, we know that there's a supreme being that created all of this, but he also delegated a lot of his power, and this is what they were able to observe in the physical world. Eventually, they just dropped the God part, and they stuck with the physical, tangible things that they were able to observe, and this is what they ascribed power to, and this is what they ascribed. They deified basically the world around them, and they built very complex, sophisticated theologies around all of this. So it began pretty innocently, and then it kind of devolved from there. So they no longer looked to beyond the visible world for meaning and for truth. And in text 13, Maimonides details this process. You can read that on your own, but I think we're running behind. So really their mistake was mistaking all the disparate forces and all the disparate elements in their lives that have power for God. That's what they did. And they ended up being left with the notion of many, many, many gods and many different disconnected sources of power. And Avram was able to see through all of that, and he was able to look to the source and to see that all of these things were merely just conduits. They were merely just creations. And behind it was one source. But the thing is, all of this is actually still relevant today. We can easily map their mistake into today's world. This video kind of describes that.
We don't bow to idols anymore. We don't worship golden calves. But worship didn't disappear. It just changed shape. Today, we worship celebrities. If they wear it, we wear it. If they use it, we use it. We wait hours just to catch a glimpse of them. And we burn hours following every update of their lives. And the pull doesn't stop there. We also turn to money. We treat it like the end-all be-all, always wanting more, no matter how much we have. Listening to people simply because they have a lot of it. Trusting it to give us control, security, and happiness. And then there's success. We sacrifice time, health, and relationships for it. We fear losing it more than losing ourselves. We start to wonder who we are without it. So we say yes when we should say no. We aren't there when we should be. Once bowing meant bending the knee. Now it means bending the mind. Of course, admiring talent isn't wrong. Liking things isn't wrong. Working hard isn't wrong. The real question is, what's ultimate? When God is in the picture, everything else finds its proper size.
So the idea is that when things are kind of left on their own, you can prioritize and basically worship for all sense, for lack of a better term. When you take something and you centralize your life around it, and it has an outsized part of your existence, and that becomes your goal. That essentially you have a bunch of different things pulling you in different directions, and that it's not unified by anything. It's not on the same level as worshiping stones, but it comes with the same. There's a certain connection there in the mindset. It's a lack of unity. It's a lack of unified purpose, and it's a lack of direction. So here's And there's another piece to it. All of these other things in your life, they not only take up a lot of your mind space and your time, but they also, you're emotionally invested in them in a way of, utter dependence and giving yourself over full, you're fully attached to them, in a way that if there's an ultimate being and a God that's who you depend on ultimately, and all of those other things are important, but they are not the end all and be all. They take a totally different level in prioritization and how they make you feel. So here's a partial list of things it's not in your book, I don't think, but who, what, and what isn't God, right? Your boss, the doctor, money, the stock market, the government, your social media following, your house, latest development in AI, the weather, the Federal Reserve Bank. All these things, they could be gods very easily, and they are. I think a lot of things, people were upset in COVID, a lot of their gods disappeared. It was very unsettling to a lot of people, including me, FDA, a lot of things, a lot of bubbles were burst. The rug was pulled out of under society, and it's traumatizing. But if you have a God above all of that, there's a unifying source for everything, and those things are just it's like giving credit to the light bulb and not to the electricity, right? Or the Rebbe used to give a famous example of somebody who they used to get a check with no money in the bank. Like the check is the outward manifestation of, it's backed by the money in the bank. The check is just a way to reference the money in the bank. And that's how God, God is the money in the bank, and everything else that we have to do in this world to get ahead and is just the way of God's energy flowing through the world. That's how monotheism structures reality. So it's not just an abstract theology. It's about an exclusive relationship. It's like it's bringing coherence to a chaotic world, where instead of a bunch of randomness and forces and different things pulling in different directions, there's one transcending being above all. And that's who we address all of our needs, fears, and hopes toward. So it's worth reflecting how we would organize our lives if that was how we struck. If there was a monotheistic, one unifying God above all of the things in our lives. Another component to this, which we touched on a little bit, is this idea of the chaos and the anxiety that is induced through a polytheistic or having a multitude of gods, having a multitude of places where you put your faith. That is actually a very chaotic and a very restless state of being, and it hinders progress. It hinders the ability to really flourish. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote this very well on text 14a, talking about how it used to be in ancient times. There were many gods. They fought, struggled, and established hierarchies of dominance, slowly, page 27, slowly establishing order out of chaos. We have many records of those ancient times, and through the names of the god, and though the names of the gods change depending on whether we speak of Mesopotamia, Egypt, Canaan, or ancient Greece, the stories are remarkably similar. The god of the sky does battle with the god of the sea, and out of the victory establishes dry land, usually over the dead body of his slain victim. The god of the lightning and the rain impregnates the goddess of earth, and then crops grow and the land brings forth its produce. The ancient world was one in which order was constantly threatened by chaos, at times in the forms of floods and droughts, and others by war and from invading tribes. Through the stories they told, they explained to themselves why this is so. Disturbances here reflect more ultimate struggles elsewhere between the gods. So they were basically affirming a chaotic world, and instead of making it and it deifies the chaos in a certain sense. Obviously, it was all meant to amount to order, but it was kind of a very fractured way of viewing reality. And these pantheon of gods have competing interests, and you never know when you're going to piss one off, and it's all and they all have different things that you need, and it's just a constant maintenance, very high maintenance, these gods. So life is just a constant anxious negotiation of unseen powers, which can also apply to modern times, right? Some of us feel like we're in a constant negotiation of unseen powers. Someone was just telling me about a conspiracy theory that the Chabad is
Not my theory.
okay, Tucker Carlson's theory that Chabad is plotting to bring in people to make the country less white. I don't know. I've never been contacted about this, but the point is the point is there's all these unseen people who believe in God. They shouldn't be having to sit in their beds worrying about the Jews controlling the weather. But either way, it's the laser beams. And then to contrast that, page 14b, the account of creation in the first chapter of Genesis is stunningly original, quite unlike any other in antiquity. There are no contending forces, no battles of the gods, no capricious spirits. God speaks and the universe comes into being. God is not in nature, but above it, transcending it and ordering it according to his word. Nature has no will or set of wills of its own. So he was bringing coherence to a chaotic world. That's what he was. And it was not a battleground of divine egos, but it was a single purposeful creation governed by one benevolent creator. That was the idea of monotheism. And that we'll talk more in the next lesson about why that idea informs our morality and how it affects the way we view morality and how that affects the way we, that in other ways of building society. It's a very profound and transformational idea. It also formed, it's another course that we're not giving, but it's technically the next JLI course, about how that even informed the foundation of this country. But these things that ancient people worshipped, the powers, the rain, the wind, the fire, the mountains, and maybe in today's way of doing it, the materialists of attributing powers to all the forces around them, right? Believing that your livelihood primarily stems from your business and healing from a doctor. It's all really the same. In essence, we're relying on external forces rather than recognizing the ultimate source. And that's the kicker of monotheism is that that is the main place where it's coming from. Yes.
Were the idols used by kings and queens and leaders in ancient times as a power play in order they can take up what the gods believe in, and they could ensure that the populace follows?
Yeah, there was definitely no separation of church and state. So they basically, the kings usually, and a lot of times, were themselves deities, or they were very well connected to the deity, and they were put in power by the deity. And in the Jewish king was actually subjected to the deity, to God. He actually was. He actually had to have deference to the prophet and to the Sanhedrin and to the Kohen. That was always an interesting thing. Also, that was like kind of an early balance of executive power that in the Jewish setup of things. Didn't work out for us, but whatever. So monotheism brings a certain calm, a certain certainty, a balance and a levelness to reality that the polytheistic way of framing the world is really not capable of. And this trust and serenity in God it gives us a footing. It gives us a way of a confidence enable us to propel us forward with improving the world. So that's why it's so important to Jews, to the Jewish idea is monotheism. On page 28, you talk about in Psalms, this idea of trust and serenity. It's all over the place. A song by one of the famous Psalms, and the Rebbe would recommend people learn this in depth and with all the commentaries if they have anxiety issues. So a song by David: God is my shepherd, I will not lack. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Even when I walk in the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And we actually say this every week. We begin each week with this reminder of this reassurance. Another quote from Isaiah: Indeed, God is my deliverance. I am confident, and I will not be afraid. For God is my strength and my song, and he has been my salvation. So yeah, that's why monotheism is so foundational. And then on the flip side of that, we have the second mitzvah, which is a prohibition against cursing God. Well, is God so particular about what people say about him? No, I don't think so. That's definitely not the idea. What is someone doing when they're cursing God? When someone denies God or questions God, that makes sense, right? I question my parents all the time, question things that happen all the time. That's fine. And even if I'm an atheist, at least I don't believe in God's existence. But if I curse God, I know everything I know about him, I'm aware of him, but I'm rejecting him. So what does that mean? That means that this monotheistic goodness that I have just described, that is underpinning, and propelling our society forward, our world forward, and I am now it's a nightmare, because I'm saying it's not good. It's bad. It's a bad force in this world. It's not something to be praised. It's something to be denigrated. And that statement is very harmful, right? All of the good that monotheism brings is completely reversed. If someone was to say, it's like someone was asked in an interview, do you believe in God? And he said, I'm very afraid that there might be one. But the point is, this version of God that this person is rejected, that's saying he's cursing, he's basically, yes, there's a power, there's a source of everything, but it's not good. That's horrible. That's the most limiting. That's the most detractive thing for us as far as what we're trying to accomplish in this world. So that's why it's like number 2 in the list. Don't curse God, right? It's almost, I can think about like if someone loses the love for life, someone thinks that life is horrible and life is just bad, and it's very possible someone can have this, someone can have that, they could be convinced that it's not worth bringing kids into the world. It's not worth getting up in the morning. It's not worth it. It's philosophically. I'm not talking about clinical depression. I'm talking about philosophically. Someone can argue that perhaps life is not worth pushing yourself out of bed every day and dealing with all the BS. Maybe not. Maybe it's not. That notion is antithetical to Judaism. This idea that's cursing God. It's cursing life, cursing what we believe. We believe, and it's a faith-based belief that God is good. Its reality is good, and that belief is what allows us to keep going through all of this stuff. That's why we're the specializers. We're able to go through 3,000 years of what the Jews go through, and we're still the ones taking these values and embodying them and promoting them. That's the deal. That's the deal we signed up for. That's what it means to be a Jew. So step number 2, or a Noahide for that matter, don't curse God. We have to believe in the righteousness and the benevolence of God, despite all the questions we may have. But to let it come to our lips, otherwise, to curse it is that's something that's anathema to us. In fact, if you ever look at a list of the Noahide laws, an official list, it always says blessing God as the second one. We use a euphemism. We don't even want to say the idea. I'm saying it now because no one will know what I'm talking about if I keep saying not to bless God. But we say bless God because we don't even say curse God. We don't want to put the two together because it's so antithetical to truth. And it's not just dogma. It could sound like that. We're just so sensitive to draw Muhammad. It just makes us really angry. That's not what I'm talking about. No, it's just runs counter to the very essence of life and truth for a Jew. Yeah.
We had some neighbors who were very religious Catholics, had one circle of very religious Catholic friends. We'd be invited to their meals sometimes.
Yeah.
And they often had priests or brothers in attendance. And so one night they asked us to give the blessing over the bread instead of them. And we start out, "Blessed art thou, Lord our God." And the priest's response was, "Isn't that interesting? You bless God. You don't bless the bread."
Did someone bless the bread?
Well, the Gentile version is, bless.
Bless the food that I'm eating. Interesting. That's an interesting point.
Blessing God for giving it to you.
Yeah, we say bless God for creating the bread, but that's exactly this point. We're basically affirming that this bread might look tasty and it's giving me, it's satiating me, but it's not. Actually, we're recognizing that we're recognizing its origin right before we eat it. We're recentering ourselves on the true ultimate reality. It's a beautiful thing. That's incredible. Just for clarification, I don't know. Some people think cursing God is about blaspheming. Blaspheming is a different thing. Some people translate it as blaspheming is like saying something denigrating or saying something like disrespectful, like that or whatever. But this is we're talking about like cursing is like cursing means like saying like you are bad, rejecting and completely negating. That's what cursing is about. Okay, so we're at the end of our discussion here from the class. So we began our discussion by acknowledging our common perception of Judaism, which is kind of this private insular tradition. And then we traced our collective story back to Abraham, and we saw and discovered a far broader and more inclusive narrative. Abraham introduced this revolutionary worldview based on monotheism codified in the 7 Noahide laws, which is a moral framework for all of humanity. So this kind of reframes this very controversial concept of chosenness that we started off with, right? The chosenness, and Ellen asked, what is this chosenness if everything's basically, we're all good people. So what are we chosen for? So one way to understand this is that we're the ones who are chosen to bear this universal moral system, right? I already touched on that we're responsible for professionalizing in that and specializing in it and making sure that humanity never really forgets it. Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf that the Jews are really a problem, besides for all the other problems. One of the big problems is we're the conscience of humanity. We're holding back humanity from accomplishing its true, its true evilness, but to reach its true potential, that to be able to ruthlessly go forward. We were that little annoying Jiminy Cricket that was holding them back. That was kind of he recognized that in us, which is kind of a compliment. I don't know. So we're a nation of spiritual mentors. That's one way to view it. In the Sephorno, he talks about that in text 1:18. And you will be for me a kingdom of priests. What does that mean? You will be a unique treasure to me in the sense that you will be a kingdom of priests whose mission is to guide and teach the entire human race to call upon the name of God and to serve him with one purpose. And then the famous quote, "A light unto the nations" in Isaiah 19a. I, God, has called you with righteousness. I will strengthen your hand. I will protect you, and I will set you as a covenant for all people and a light unto the nations. And so this is how we aspire to be a light unto the nations by promoting these ideas, these values. If the world had more trust in this idea that we talked about, this monotheistic concept, if that was standard in the world, maybe there would be less. There would for sure be less of whatever problems there are with human behavior and just the issues So we have to, yeah, we have to hope that this message actually gets out there. So next week we're going to talk about the foundation of morality and how that's rooted in this belief in God, and how, you know, how we derive our morality. Okay, let's say the wrap up video.
Message of Abraham. Judaism appears exclusive because the Torah frames the Jewish people as a distinct nation with a unique covenant. Yet this separateness is only part of it. The story of Abraham shows that Judaism includes a universal moral mission for all humanity. 2. Abraham differed from Noah by caring about the fate of all people, not only
Did I just?
his own family. His bold advocacy for Sodom reveals that Judaism begins with care for the world, not isolation. 3. God chose Abraham because he taught others to live by righteousness, justice, and the values contained in the 7 Noahide laws. Jews are commanded to teach these laws, and anyone who observes them earns the title righteous among the nations, with a share in the world to come. 4. Monotheism, the first of the 7 laws, revolutionized human thought by replacing a chaotic world of competing forces with one creator and one coherent moral order. Modern materialism repeats ancient errors by attributing power to intermediaries rather than true source. 5. Cursing God, the second of the 7 laws, is prohibited because it undermines the core of monotheism. It denies God's goodness, collapsing the trust on which a meaningful, ordered universe depends. 6. Chosenness is not about superiority, but responsibility. The Jewish mission is to safeguard and share a universal moral framework for all humankind.
Okay.
So
Thank
do
you.
others, do others see this, or do we, or we